Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Eleanor. I really wish that I had set up a camera in the corner of my study and filmed myself during this past week because I have, to say the least, behaved erratically in my reading and writing. I mean, I'm usually quite erratic, but even more so than usual. And I think it would have been highly entertaining if I had been able to fast forward that for your and my entertainment. However, I didn't do that, so I'm going to have to try to explain to you in words here what went on this week. So this week was going to start with simply by reading another book of poetry. This one that came out in 2016 by Robyn Schiff, called A Woman of Property. Now, if you've been playing along, and I'll leave a link below, I did a deep dive into her latest book that just came out last year called Information Desk. And I have been thinking about that a lot. And after reading the book Foxglove Wise by Angie Malinko last week, I thought, I need to go back now and read more Robyn Schiff. And these two poets have shown me something that I didn't know was available in contemporary American poetry. So I downloaded A Woman of Property and I started reading it, and it is in many ways right up my alley, and in many ways really opaque to me. And it's opaque to me because of allusions to things that I don't know about. So the first thing I did was read an interview, and don't worry, I always get to talking about the poetry book, but I just want to show you how the erratic style of reading starts with me. I never plan it, it just happens out of pure necessity, and I will prove that to you. So I found an amazing interview that she did. It's on the Rumpus, link below. An interview with Emma Windsor Wood, and right in the beginning, Robyn Schiff says that the title, A Woman of Property, is a nod to the first book in John Galsworthy's Forsyte Saga novels, which is titled The Man of Property, came out in 1906. Now, I happen to know that my grandpa had a copy, and therefore I have a copy of that very same book. I have it right here, and look at that. I have been admiring it for some time, but have not picked it up. I didn't really know what it was about, and I'd never heard about the Forsyte Saga before. In any case, my main aim, always with my channel, is that if any book strikes my interest and it's in my grandpa's library, that's where I'm going to go first. And this was a great excuse, because I thought to myself, well, if Robyn Schiff was reading this book and that's what led her to writing in some part this book of poetry, I should read it. And so yes, I did read it, and it was a riveting, brilliant read. I so highly recommend The Man of Property. The Man of Property? Yes, The Man of Property. And I will go on to talk about it. Do not fear. And I'm going to leave timestamps below, so if this bores you, you can fast forward. But I need to get this off my chest. So I've read this interview. I've read most of the book of poems by Robyn Schiff. I then went and just plowed through Galsworthy's novel because it's fantastic, and got so much out of it and got so excited, and I was going to continue reading, other books in the Forsyte Saga, and then I thought, no, wait a minute. let's go back to Robyn Schiff, and I go back and reread the interview and reread some poems, and I see that I would say you will probably lose at least 50% of the meaning of most of her poems in this book if you, like me, know almost nothing about classical, ancient Greek literature. I mean, I've read the Iliad, the Odyssey ages ago. Not my cup of tea. Have no interest in it whatsoever. I do know who Iphigenia is now. Iphigenia is the way we're pronouncing Iphigenia. You see, this is where my erratic behavior starts going off, because the little bits and pieces that I learned of these Greek myths and legends, I don't have a context for them. My mother mentioned to me how much she loves the story of Iphigenia, and Iphigenia was the way she pronounced it, and that was it. And now all of a sudden I'm sitting here for 20 minutes looking up, how do you pronounce Aeschylus? How do you pronounce Oresteia? How do you pronounce Clytemnestra? And I mean, frankly, most people pronounce it differently each time. It's really annoying. But apart from that, can't really get my head around it. Artemis. I mean, all of these gods that, I didn't grow up with this stuff, and I didn't choose, in my bachelor degree, I took a few intro to humanities courses, but I was off on a completely different track, and this was not my cup of tea. I still, to this day, think people are absolutely crazy to be so in love with these myths and legends. Like, I don't even get it. And that goes for other classics that I just can't seem to sit down and concentrate on. Dante is a nemesis to me. I mean, every second poem mentions Dante, and I'll be damned if I want to read that. Like, I don't know how long it is, and it's so boring. So anyway, I'm sitting here and I'm reading all about how important it is for Robyn Schiff to use these myths and legends. And she writes very long poems, and they have a certain wonderful rhythm to them that's very much her own. But there are two shorter poems, and they're the only ones with long titles. And they're about Iphigenia. There's one, they're sort of like twin poems. One is called A Doe Replaces Iphigenia on the Sacrificial Altar. And the other one is A Doe Does Not Replace Iphigenia on the Sacrificial Altar. And at least I understood that, because I knew it was talking about the sacrifice of a daughter so that you could go to war. So Agamemnon needs to get the winds to go a certain way, and to do that he needs to sacrifice his daughter. It's a great reference. If you want to write a really emotional poem, a poem that really kicks you like in the gut, and you can do it quite easily by simply mentioning Iphigenia and a doe that does or does not replace her as a sacrifice. That's the way to do it. So then I look up a few interviews that Robyn Schiff does on YouTube, or did, that is. And as sometimes happens, I have a complete and utter crush on her. I'm not talking about like a love crush. I'm talking about an intellectual crush. This is the kind of professor that I would have done anything. I would have done anything to be in her classes. She is, if I'm not mistaken, a professor of literature at University of Chicago. What an amazing powerhouse of creativity, pedagogy, generosity of spirit. What a great speaker in interviews. Also, on top of it, my grandfather has a lot of these classic books, especially the ancient Greek plays. And they're gorgeous, and I love them as objects. But now I'm thinking, well, if Robyn Schiff is doing it, I certainly have to do it. I mean, I read the book she recommended, The Man of Property by John Galsworthy, and it changed my world. So why not? So So I thought, oh, I'm going to try to read these. So I've got Sophocles' Antigone. I mean, look at this stunning book, and others. But time is of the essence. Not really, because I'm not fully committed to a weekly video on BookTube. Not at all. I do it because I find it's a good way of delineating my reading weeks for myself, so that I can just I have to give myself permission to move on. Otherwise, I'll just read one book for the whole year. I need to move on. But I'm thinking, I can't be reading the Oresteia like just in my spare time in the next 20 minutes so that I can talk about it here, or so that I can relate it to. It's not going to happen. So I'll leave a link to another booktuber who gave a very helpful and fun summary of some of the stories I was looking into. But then I, of course, circle back to Galsworthy and The Man of Property, because there's so much to think about in regards to the Robyn Schiff book. There's no doubt that Robyn Schiff is, up here. But is she easy? No. Now, are the classics easy? No. So why is everyone spending time reading? Like, why would you spend time? For example, if I can spend time, if I have a spare hour every day set aside to read something difficult, I'm not going to choose Dante. I'm not going to choose Thomas Mann, The Magic Mountain. I'm not going to choose Proust. I'm going to choose Robyn Schiff, because she's around my age. She's right there at the University of Chicago, and she's writing amazing, amazing poems. And I want to know more about them. I want to get into that world. It's a crazy, creepy world. This world of A Woman of Property, woo, it'll blow you away. Sometimes it's like living in a haunted house. Sometimes it's like living in a crazy horror movie. It's like going into your body and back out. It's like going under the ground and seeing the ants and then coming back out as a black tulip whose head is cut off. You don't even know what I just got chills down my spine. You don't even know what she wants to do in her nursery furniture poem. Ooh, she became a mother at a certain time around this time. She has this little baby boy, and she's got this rocking chair, and it keeps breaking. Yeah, and the screw comes out. She calls, who is it, Allison. She has to call Allison, at the Land of Nod to tell her that there's a problem and the delivery men have to come back. And then all of a sudden we're in her basement and weird things are happening. But at the same time, she's doing the laundry. Why would I read the Oresteia instead of Robyn Schiff? But I need to know about the Oresteia to really get the most out of Robyn Schiff. So going back now, you get an idea of the architecture of her poems. So that's actually the architecture and the content. She's got this big old house that she's living in. At least that's how I view it. She sometimes goes to the deli counter of the local supermarket, and she sees like a melting clock that's actually a hornet carrying a piece of ham, and there's like surreal, like sort of Dali coming in. But then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's happening. I'm telling you, this is right up my alley. And then there's also the architecture, the form that she's writing in. She's a syllabicist. She's counting syllables. Now, I don't know where all these reviewers and critics are living who say that there's no place in contemporary American poetry for classical, inherited, whatever form, blah, blah, blah. Look, you've got Angie Malenko and you've got Robyn Schiff. It's great. These people are out there. Now, I should say, I didn't know, but it must have been around the time, maybe just after my discussion of her latest book, of Robyn Schiff's latest book, Information Desk came out that she won this massive award. It's the Four Quartets Prize. It's presented by the American Poetry Association, and it's designed to honor multi-part poems, which is what Information Desk is. And it's a very big deal. I mean, more people should be talking about her, but it's not easy. It's not easy peasy to pick up her book and get into her world. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes getting into it. So now back to the idea of the architecture. And so I opened the Galsworthy book to remind myself. And I've come up to, just by chance, chapter 8 in part 1, Plans of the House. Look how lovely with this book you have this chain motif is repeated again and again. It's very symbolic. All Forsytes, as is generally admitted, have shells, like that extremely useful little animal which is made into Turkish delight. In other words, they are never seen, or if seen, would not be recognized, without habitats, composed of circumstance, property, acquaintances, and wives, which seem to move along with them in their passage through a world composed of thousands of other Forsytes with their habitats. Without a habitat, a Forsyte is inconceivable. He would be like a novel without a plot, which is well known to be an anomaly. Well, not in 2025, but in any case, Galsworthy, what an excellent paragraph to start this chapter on. So back to the idea of the house. The man of property is, as you can see, about the Forsyte family. It was published in 1906. Now, the property rights of the Act for Property Rights of Married Women only came into effect, I think, in 1882. So it was only a few years prior that married women were allowed to keep their property. Before that, it just simply became their husbands. And also another little tidbit which I didn't realize is that it was not illegal. Marital rape was not deemed illegal. I'm talking about the United Kingdom until 1992. Yeah, let that sink in. So with these two ideas in mind, I don't want to say very much more. I don't want to do give any spoilers. But with this in mind, you have this family that's very tight-knit. And I should say it's actually a very entertaining book because it's written so fabulously well. But I wouldn't say it's a happy-go-lucky book. But it's riveting. It's absolutely riveting. And no wonder it was made on TV as a series. But in any case, there's a love affair that goes on between a married woman and an architect who is employed by this woman's husband to design, build, and decorate a house in the country. I'm wondering now if I should really stop here and not say any more about this novel and this book of poetry and let you do what you will with what I've told you. And I think I will stop because I could continue forever. Suffice to say, you can see I was quite erratic in my behavior. And in fact, Robyn Schiff's own writing mirrors that. So maybe I was kind of absorbing that from her book. She calls it a curiosity romp. Both her poetry and the experience of reading it for me definitely was. Maybe I'll leave you with a few wonderful little bits and pieces that I wrote down from the interviews I watched with her. She says that poetry, and in fact all the arts, is a machine that makes us think and learn more. Their poems are self-knowledge machines in a way, which is so true. She has an incredible discussion with Jericho Brown, who also counts syllables and also uses a lot of form. Again, why is no one paying attention to Jericho Brown when they talk about, oh, no one's using form, no one's using form? Jericho Brown, I'll leave a link to the video I made about his book, The Tradition. And they talk about that a lot in the YouTube video. And she also mentions, well, he says sense is overrated. This is Jericho Brown. He says sense is overrated. There are a lot of ways to make sense. And she says, yes, and the sensorium is underrated. Sensorium, so I looked it up. It's this idea that you come to a poem with all your senses, not just logic. I was also stopped in my tracks with the way Robyn, Schiff and Jericho Brown discussed how they view repetition in poetry. These are some of the ideas that they were bouncing around and playing with. A repetition can feel like it's holy. It can feel like a prayer. Repetition does not necessarily mean that you're saying the same thing each time. You're not. It can be haunting, and it can feel like you're in a haunted house. Robyn Schiff calls it an uncanny mirror. You are looking at something. Repetition allows you to look at something, but it's not quite the same as what you saw before. It's also she calls it, it's also connected directly to PTSD, which I never heard before. How interesting. How interesting. Maybe I'll finish with an excerpt from Robyn Schiff's poem Nursery Furniture, which is in A Woman of Property. I won't start at the beginning, just for fun. I'll do something different. Okay, the return policy at Land of Nod, like an insidious mum extension of the deadline for completion of a project I wish I had not undertaken, threatens endless, unrelating replacement of everything, no questions asked. But Alison asked as a courtesy, so I pushed the game. Equilateral public mouth, the tri-lipped angel of post-traumatic repetition, contorts to foretell the past, and listened with Alison to the estate sale auctioneer's lamentation rise as the runners rock, wind, water riving deep natural boundaries between kin. Original keen of first material. The wood, the block, the axe, the altar, the kid. This wasn't here when I put the chair down last week, a delivery man said of a screw he found beneath the skirt, lifting up the chair to replace it the second time. The chair rejected it when you rocked the baby, didn't it? That's the turn of the screw in the other direction. I hear the loosening of an elemental hinge. So yes, if you're looking for something that's incredibly strange, moving, horrifying, and might remind you of a certain feeling you might have had, or someone you know might have had, who's just had a baby, this is the book to read. It's absolutely superb on many different levels that I haven't even started to talk about. But I think I'd like to finish it there. I wish you all well. Who knows what the next week will bring. And don't forget, the only real property is the property of the mind. Bye.